Have you ever had something difficult happen and your spiritual friend reminds you that, hey, everything happens for a reason? And it kind of pisses you off because you feel like they're spiritual bypassing, which is to say, they're dismissing your pain by using some spiritual platitude that doesn't really have anything to do with what you're experiencing. Or they use it to absolve themselves of any personal responsibility or to deny the severity of what just happened, which could be interpreted as a form of spiritual bypassing. Either way, having someone spiritually bypass your pain kind of just makes you want to clock them in the face, right? But the question we don't often consider is what's the alternative? Should everybody be super serious about every challenging thing that happens to every single person, even if that person is on the other side of the world? Do we all need to stop what we're doing and stop following our purpose in order to grieve for every hardship that happens to someone, even if there's nothing that we can do about it right now? And if that's not the expectation, then who gets to determine which challenges we should take to heart and which ones we're allowed to chalk up as just happening for a reason? Well, from a spiritual perspective, the answer is we can do a little bit of both. Remember, our working definition for spirituality is the ability to hold multiple truths in our awareness at the same time without having to make one of them right and the other one wrong. That means that something can be painful and require action, and we can also have the understanding that it's happening for a reason. Now, obviously, depending on the situation, we don't have to point out that it's happening for a reason. We can silently have that understanding, but both can be accurate descriptions of the same situation depending on the vantage point that we're looking at it from and who we're talking to about it. And if we happen to be talking to the person who's still in pain, then it's often not very helpful to say that everything's happening for a reason. But then again, depending on the nature of that relationship and the trust that you've built up with the other person, sometimes it is appropriate to point that out, but maybe after a little time has passed. Either way, we could all show just a little bit more grace when it comes to this idea of spiritual bypassing because let's admit it, none of us went to school to learn how to have difficult conversations or how to process hard things or how to navigate the 5 stages of grief or how to see the big picture in challenging situations. We're all just kind of stumbling our way through this, doing the best we can. And so this is where more patience is oftentimes needed from us. Because when we blindly label someone's response as spiritual gaslighting, not only does it cause us to get triggered, but what we're really doing is we're just projecting our own discomfort with however they're processing the situation. And look, how do we know what this person really feels deep down? I remember many, many years ago being at a dinner party, and there was about 8 of us sitting outside at this table. And one of my friends is this 6'5", very muscular, very masculine dude with a deep voice. We'll call him Chuck. And anyway, during the dinner, one of the women sees a mouse running under the table and she screamed, and everybody jumped and lifted their legs up except for Chuck. And later on, I felt a bit embarrassed because I thought that I should have had more of a stoic response like Chuck's. But then Chuck admitted that when he heard the woman yell mouse, he became so petrified that he couldn't move. And that's why he didn't lift his legs up. It wasn't because he was stoic, it's because he was paralyzed with fear. So here I thought he was having this stoic reaction when in actuality, it was completely the opposite. And if someone hears about something bad that happens to you or someone else, and they say something like, hey, everything happens for a reason, for all we know, they could be meaning that literally, or they could be paralyzed by fear. And saying something like that is their way of at least initially processing the information. In other words, how they respond is on them, and we don't need to take it personally. We don't need their process to look like ours. We don't need their timeline of how they grieve situations to fit our expectations. Because all that does is it pulls us further away from our work. And ironically, The more energy we spend trying to name or diagnose someone else's spiritual process, the more we start bypassing our own responsibility to stay grounded in our experience. Because from a spiritual perspective, growth is not about managing someone else's emotions or spiritual maturity. It's about mastering our own ability to observe without needing to interfere and to see and accept someone else without needing to judge them. So even when it is spiritual bypassing, so what? If they're not ready or if they're not able to face something, here's what we know. Life has a relentless way of bringing it back around until they deal with it, right? That's the spiritual curriculum. No one gets to skip their work. No one can bypass something forever. So let's agree to trust in life and let's stop policing other people's spiritual growth and their reactions. And instead, let's agree to let go of the need to label what we don't fully understand. Let's agree to free up our own energy. Let's redirect our attention and let's return to the one thing that we do have control over, which is our own clarity, our own alignment, and our own path. Because here's the bottom line. Calling out spiritual bypassing may make us feel right in the moment, but it's ultimately not helpful for our spiritual growth. And the next time you're tempted to name something as spiritual bypassing in someone else, just ask yourself, could there be something more to this that I'm not seeing? Spoiler alert, the answer is yes. And so let's always take advantage of our opportunity to pause instead of reacting and to breathe and to make space for a little complexity in our understanding, right? And to hold those multiple truths in our awareness. Because when we do that, we stop needing to control everybody else's journey and we gain more presence within our own journey. And remember what the Dalai Lama once said. He said, it's much more valuable to observe one of your own faults than it is to observe 1,000 in someone else. That's the ultimate spiritual practice. And within that approach, you are going to find ultimate freedom. Does that resonate? If so, let me know in the comments. And if I'm missing something, let me know in the comments what I'm missing. And to hear more about the spiritual perspective, check out our entire playlist of videos. We talk about the spiritual perspective in relationships, in politics, in manifesting, and so much more. And new episodes are released each Monday, so make sure to subscribe and please share these videos with someone else who may need to hear this broader spiritual perspective as they're navigating an everyday problem. Thanks again for watching. Thank you so much for watching. Just FYI, we post a new video almost every day, so make sure you comment and subscribe. And if you ever want to explore more, you can find playlists of all my podcasts, plot twists, and spiritual perspective videos linked in the description below. If you want to go even deeper, I've written several books on spirituality, happiness, and personal growth, and you can also book a one-on-one consultation directly with me. All of the details are in the description below. And if you enjoyed this video, I think you're really going to like this one as well.